What is up, everybody? My name is Braden Carlson. Thank you for tuning in to another Motor Biscuit video. This is a Genesis G90 3.5T e-supercharger. I have to admit, being a car enthusiast, it was initially very difficult for me to separate the Genesis namesake from Hyundai. After all, there used to be the Hyundai Genesis, and of course this is from the same parent company. But make no mistake, this is a serious and full-blown luxury car. If you peruse through the catalog of Motor Biscuit videos that I've hosted and produced, you'll know that I'm more of a sports car, performance-oriented kind of enthusiast. But the Genesis G90 has turned me into a finer things in life luxury car lover. Once we start digging into the G90, you're going to see why, because this is very much competitive with the flagship BMW and Mercedes luxury sedan offerings like the 7 Series and the S-Class. Before we get too far into this review though, I want to front load that the MSRP of this car is $100,300. Usually with my Motor Biscuit reviews, it's all about driving, feel, and performance and really feeling connected with a car, but this is going to be a little bit different. Instead, we're going to focus a little bit more on the luxury elements of the G90 so you can see just how far Genesis has gone to ensure that this is a make no mistake, top of the line luxury car that has very much earned its price point. With that in mind, let's go ahead and discuss all of the luxury features you find inside this Genesis G90, and then we'll come back around and talk about its power plant and how it feels to drive. Hopping in the Genesis G90, the first thing we're gonna do is when you have this kind of money, you never would dare close your own door. So you press the button that does it for you. The interior materials in this car are absolutely stunning. There's Nappa leather on all 4 seats, and all 4 are both heated, ventilated, and massaging. And there's an extra special feature on the rear seat that we'll get to here in a second. There's all this beautiful brushed aluminum metal-like finishes, and everything feels so very precise and well thought out. And personal favorite, most, if not all of the controls still have a physical button. There is this roller wheel to toggle through the menu options, but it does actually click down. I want to say thank you to Genesis for the volume roller and not making it something you integrated to the touchscreen, because that is the most frustrating thing. I will add though that virtually all of the cars where that becomes a point of frustration is because the touchscreen is a little bit laggy, and that is not something you run into with the Genesis G90. The screen is extremely responsive, drag, pinch to zoom with Google Maps open. The navigation system integrated is very good, but of course it's 2023, so it's got Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. A little bit disappointed in that it doesn't have wireless Android Auto, or if it does, I can't figure out how to make it work. The dashboard and doors all have this beautiful wood trim. There is suede microfiber lining for the headliner and the B pillars, or A pillars, all the pillars, really. It's got a leather wrapped steering wheel, and of course it's heated, and leatherette wrapped dash. Everything just seems so refined and well thought out and luxurious, which I guess makes a lot of sense. It also has this insane surround sound Bang & Olufsen speaker system. It lets you decide how you want to hear it. You can hear it home theater style, in surround sound, or there's even an option to replicate the Boston Symphony Hall. I'm not kidding, that is an option on the radio on the G90. So whatever flavor you're fancying for listening to Tchaikovsky or Tupac, it's up to you. You get to decide how you want to hear it. So now that we've kind of gone over the luxury basics of what this car has and what it can do, I'm going to show you my favorite parts that I think really put the Genesis G90 over the top in really selling it as the ultimate luxury vehicle. I'll see you guys on the outside. Now I know what you're thinking. For $100,000, it better offer more than just the luxury of not having to shut the door, and of course it does. I have the key fob right here, and we're gonna start it up. If you're looking to spend this much money on a luxury car, the thought of walking to your car may absolutely disgust you, and I have great news. If you just hold down this button here on the key fob, it'll come to you. Now, of course, this is a lot more applicable in situations where, say, you have the car in the garage, it's a little bit of a tight fit to try and get the doors open or whatever, which I did demonstrate in my own garage on a YouTube short on the Motor Biscuit channel. You can, of course, use it to summon it to you if for some reason you want to do that. But one of the craziest features of using these front and back driving buttons on the key fob is for the automated parking system. Like many modern luxury cars, this thing will park itself and nicely back itself into a parking spot if you have a lot of time to wait for that to happen. But what you can do with the Genesis G90 is press park, get out of the car and hold the button on the key fob and let the car park itself with nobody in it. And it is a very frightening thing to do. I gave it a shot and I would do it again, except for it takes such a long time that you start feeling a certain kind of way about yourself when you're standing there and there's cars moving through the parking lot and people just kind of staring at you because you're sitting there pretentiously parking your car with your key fob. Of course, if you have the $100,000 to spend, that kind of attention might not bother you. It is a little bit of an over-the-top feature, but it is there and it's pretty awesome. So the G90, like many luxury cars, is a little optimized for you purchasing the car and having somebody else drive you around in it. That leads us to my favorite over-the-top luxury feature of the G90, and that is this button down here. I'm just gonna push the button and let you guys watch. That's right, the G90 has a recliner and footrest in the back seat like a lazy boy. Of course, the fitment on me is a little bit rough because I am 6'3", but overall, this is one of the craziest luxury car features I've ever seen. I saw this on a G90 they had at the LA Auto Show last year, and at that moment decided the very first opportunity I have to drive one, I'm going to take it. My one gripe is that to get all the seating in this position, you have to hold the button down, and it's a little bit strenuous, don't you think? If you just want more leg room, you can actually control the position of the front passenger seat too. So you can entirely disregard whoever's sitting in the front and move them as close to the dashboard as you want for all your comfort in the world. But I do have to say, even being 6'3", with the passenger seat all the way back, there's still so much leg room back here that it's almost unbelievable. There's some other cool features for comfort of people riding in the back as well, such as quiet mode, where it will only play the audio through the front speakers at a lower level. It'll shut the audio off back here so you can just kind of enjoy your heated massage as your driver takes you back to your house or the club or wherever it is you're going. I don't know what rich people do. I feel like while I'm back here, it's also worth noting that all 4 seats have 4 different massage zones, so you can really dial in what you're feeling having massaged at this very moment. And say it's a hot day outside, the back seats are cooled too, like I mentioned before. This thing is ridiculously luxurious. Obviously, it's a luxury car, so it's got automatic windows, but it also has automatic sunshades. That's right, baby. Like Post Malone said, windows always tinted, you ain't looking in it. A couple other awesome features of the G90 I didn't touch on there was the fact that it has 5 USB-C ports, which is crazy. It has active noise control, so you can decide how much of the engine you and your passengers hear. And perhaps the craziest feature is the fact that the rear center console features a UV cleaner, so you can put your phone, sunglasses, or whatever else you want in that little compartment, and it uses UV light to kill all the bacteria on it. Now that we've taken a look at all the luxurious features of the G90 though, let's talk about what it's like to drive one. So one thing I immediately noticed about the G90 is despite it being 17.5 feet long, it has a surprisingly tight turning radius, which was only surprising until the moment that I realized that it has 4-wheel steering. I feel like it is almost at this point a necessary integration for something like this. So yeah, tight corners, U-turns, not a problem with this thing, despite it being as long as your average yacht. So under the hood of the G90, there's a 3.5 liter twin turbocharged V6 and a 48 volt electric supercharger system. And while it is still technically a mild hybrid, it is actually a supercharger with a compressor wheel and a housing and everything that is driven by a 48 volt onboard battery pack. It's pretty crazy technology, and combined they output 409 horsepower. Don't get too excited if you're expecting a bunch of pep in the step of the G90 though. It has 21-inch wheels and weighs 5,200 pounds. So while it definitely can get out of its own way, it's definitely not something you would take to the drag strip. Luxury features for the driving experience include active noise control, so you get very little road noise in here, and if you want even less, you can turn that on. It is very much like driving a library. And again, when you're used to rough suspension sports cars like I am, for example, I bounced from this to my Ford Fiesta ST, it is a very drastic difference. Of course, you would expect this to ride very nicely. It's a $100,000 luxury car. Of course, it's got all the standard safety features like collision warnings and lane departure warnings and lane keep assist and all that kind of stuff. In fact, I might argue that the most luxurious part about driving a Genesis G90 is how much you don't have to drive the Genesis G90 when you drive it. Adaptive cruise control, automatic steering, it's not quite to autonomous driving levels you see in stuff like a Tesla, but it is quite up there. And driving through Southern California traffic, I let the car do its thing. I hovered my foot over the brake pedal because it freaks me out a little bit, but it did come to complete stops in traffic, get rolling again. All right, we got a U-turn on our hands. That is a ridiculously tight turning radius for a car this big. That's ridiculous. Anyway, back to what I was saying. I can't think of something more relaxing and luxurious after a long, hard day of pencil pushing at the corporation than to sit back, have the steering assist on, the cruise control, and just kind of get a massage on your drive home. Beautiful. One of the other standout features I forgot to mention earlier is that when you get to a parking lot or your garage or wherever you're parked, the door automatically senses where you stopped opening it and holds it there. So you can be old and decrepit and lean on the door as you get out and it won't ding the car next to you. Of course, that car doesn't matter, but you wouldn't dare scratch the paint on your $100,000 Genesis. I think my favorite part about the Genesis G90 though is that it sort of fills the gap that the Volkswagen Phaeton left wide open, wherein you have this very expensive car with all sorts of extreme luxury features, and it practically drives itself and does everything an S-Class or a 7 Series does, but it doesn't put the target on your back that buying an S-Class Mercedes does. This flies under the radar. If you see this thing parked at Target, you don't really think much of it unless you're really in the know about what it is. For 2023, I can't imagine a better stealth wealth vehicle if you want to privately enjoy the fruits of your labor without rubbing it in people's face, or rather coming back to find spit all over your car. As much as I do love this thing, and maybe it comes from a place of me not having a spare $100,000 to spend on a car, or half of that even, I don't know that if I was going to spend $100,000 on a car, this would be my first choice, but I feel like I'm a little bit different breed than the people who would prioritize something luxurious over something fast and fun to drive. I get it. I can appreciate its elegance and how incredible it is to drive, and I can only imagine how remarkable it would be to have a driver and sit in that back seat with one of those airline eye cover things on and maybe a hot towel while I get a massage, get driven back from Las Vegas to Los Angeles or whatever it is that people do when they have a lot of money. As much as I have enjoyed driving this thing, it's certainly not my cup of tea. And maybe that would change if I was a multimillionaire and I had all my toy cars and decided I just wanted something exquisite to drive down the road. I could see this being on the list higher than a BMW or Mercedes in my own mind, which is, as a car enthusiast, not something I would have ever assumed about myself, having been around for the Hyundai to Genesis spin-off transition. And I know this is probably a revelation that's super late to the game because there's plenty of people who already appreciate Genesis, and since the beginning I've had an appreciation for Genesis, but I didn't really quite have the dividing factor in my head separating it from being a Genesis and not a Hyundai Genesis. Though my mind certainly changed last year at the LA Auto Show, and now I am completely on board with Team Genesis. I get it. I love it. This car is awesome. Now, usually about now is when I would cut to the award-winning Motor Biscuit complaining section. But I will be downright honest, I don't really have anything to complain about, and I think that's largely because I don't really have anything to compare it to. Though I've driven a 7 Series BMW before, it was 20 years old. I've never driven anything to this level of luxury with this level of modernity. The first thing I would think to complain about with a 5,200 pound aircraft carrier for the street would be the fuel economy, but this is not even bad. In fact, right now, the average for the 289 miles that I've driven this thing is showing 20 miles per gallon right on the dot, which is exactly, and I mean exactly, what the EPA rating is combined. On the interstate, I saw ratings of almost 30 miles per gallon, and when you think about the fact that you're in a 5,200 pound car with 400 horsepower, that's pretty dang good. Of course, in our Corvette video, we talked about how the C8 Corvette gets about 30 miles per gallon on the interstate as well, but what it doesn't do is massage you and let you listen to the 1812 Overture from the perspective of the Boston Symphony. I figured what better way to end the G90 video than parking it with other gargantuan feats of engineering marvel. So enjoy the 787s in the background if you're an aviation enthusiast. If you look at a Genesis G90 and you still only see a big, giant, expensive Hyundai, that is 1000% a you problem. This tip to tail, top to bottom, is a world-class luxury sedan. So $100,000 may seem like a lot of money, but for the kind of people that buy these cars, I could understand why you would put this high on the list for purchasing. On that note, I want to thank you so much for watching this Motor Biscuit review. Be sure to press subscribe so you can check out all the awesome automotive videos we have coming out. And while you're at it, follow us on Instagram at Motor Biscuit Official and on Twitter at Biscuit Motor. For more information about the Genesis G90 and all sorts of automotive news and stories, check us out at motorbiscuit.com. My name is Braden Carlson, and I'll see you next time.